Today, we'll talk about which are the 5 best picks, how to choose the correct product, and what you should look at before buying. We've ranked these products based on their price, quality, durability, performance, and more. If you'd like to see their price and find out more information, you can check out the links in the description down below. Let's get started. This next model has the best performance on the list, and it's worth checking out.
Number 5. Samsung Galaxy A71. The Galaxy A71 builds on that formula with updates to the camera and chipset, and it also sports an exciting new design with a smaller cutout. Samsung hasn't changed too much here from last year, but the updates make the Galaxy A71 an enticing option in the mid-range category in 2020. Samsung offered vibrant gradient designs last year across the Galaxy A series, and in 2020 it's making a few tweaks to the design. There's now a crisscross pattern underneath the back that shows up as light reflects off the surface of the phone, and it's broken into quadrants. Each quadrant has a slightly different hue, and the overall effect is rather striking. The Galaxy A71 sports a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED screen with a tall 20:9 aspect ratio and a resolution of 2400 by 1080. The rounded rectangular module on the phone's back holds 4 cameras, the main one at 64 megapixels. Although that number matches the one seen on the Galaxy S20's telephoto camera, this isn't the same cam. The rest are a 5 megapixel depth camera, an ultra-wide 12 megapixel shooter with a 123-degree angular view, and a 5 megapixel macro camera for taking extreme close-ups. Above the latter is also a flash, useful for nighttime shots. Performance from the Galaxy A71 is smooth and snappy with 0 hiccups. The phone is running Android 10 with Samsung's One UI 2.0 skin on top, while on the inside it's packing the reasonably fast Snapdragon 730 upper mid-range processor with either 6 or 8 GB of RAM. Browsing through menus or social media feeds and even multitasking is a completely lag-free experience. Gaming is smooth also, although heavier games may need to be set to medium graphics settings. The 4500 mAh battery on board can last this phone well over 2 days of light usage on a single charge, even with always-on display. The Samsung Galaxy A71 has plenty going for it, from its big screen and power to the feature-packed cameras and massive battery. This could well be a winning formula at an attractive price point.
Next up, we have a model which gives you the best value for your money.
Number 4. Samsung Galaxy A51. Samsung is making a big push to sell more of these phones in the US with the Galaxy A51. That price puts it in direct competition with the iPhone SE, but there are plenty of other Android phones that come at this price tag. Samsung is saying the phone is awesome across 3 specs: screen, camera, and battery life. Galaxy A51 doesn't look or feel like a cheap phone at all. It's big and well put together. Samsung says that the material it's made out of is called Glastic, which sounds way chintzier than it feels. It feels nearly like glass, but it has just a bit of that hollow feel you get from plastic. My favourite part of the Galaxy A51 is the screen. It's simply a well-done 6.5-inch OLED, bright even in sunlight. If you're looking for advanced screen tech like colours that adjust to the ambient light, high refresh rates or even super high resolution, look elsewhere. But at 1080 by 2400 there are more than enough pixels, even at this screen size. I've seen plenty of low-rent big screens on Android phones and this isn't one of them. Battery life is okay, but it doesn't quite hit Samsung's claim that it's long-lasting. I'm getting just over a day, better than I could on the iPhone SE for sure. But with a 4000 mAh cell and a 1080p screen, I was a little surprised I didn't get much better. Finally, there's the camera system, which consists of more lenses than necessary. The main lens has a 48 megapixel sensor that kicks out 12 megapixel images by default. Those images are, like virtually any camera these days, decent enough in good lighting. But Samsung's other bad tendency of unnaturally lifting shadows is still sticking around. The screen is awesome, the battery life is pretty good, and the camera doesn't let you down.
Battery life is extremely important. This next model has the best battery life out of the bunch.
Number 3. Moto G Power. Moving on, we have another amazing phone. It's the Moto G Power. The Moto G Power still has the typical Motorola aesthetic, but there are a number of changes that make it look and feel more refined. For example, the front of the phone has a larger screen-to-body ratio, with no Motorola branding on the bottom bezel. It measures 6.29 by 2.99 by 0.38 inches and weighs 7.02 ounces. The front is dominated by a 6.4-inch LCD with a notch in the top left for the front-facing camera, a big improvement over the Moto G Power. The resolution has been bumped up to 2300 by 1080 for a density of 399 pixels per inch, and the aspect ratio is 19:9 thanks to the minimized bezels. On the bottom edge, you'll find a USB-C charging port, a headphone jack, and a speaker. The left side is home to the hybrid SIM micro SD slot. The right side holds textured power and volume buttons, while the top of the phone is bare. The buttons provide a satisfying click, but can be difficult to reach with small hands. The Moto G Power features a triple camera stack with a 16-megapixel primary lens with an f1.7 aperture, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide lens with an f2.2 aperture, and a 2-megapixel macro lens with an f2.2 aperture. The front-facing camera clocks in at 16 megapixels with an f2.0 aperture. The phone is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 chipset with 4GB of RAM. There's 64GB of eMMC 5.1 storage, of which 48GB is available out of the box. While 48GB of storage should be enough for moderate users, you can add up to an additional 512GB of external storage with a micro SD card. The Moto G Power ships with Android 10 with Motorola's custom skin. Unlike many smartphone makers, Motorola has a light touch when it comes to its UI, with tweaks that in some ways actually improve upon stock Android. The Moto G Power offers snappy performance and a truly spectacular battery life in a handset you can use anywhere in the world.
Before we talk about the best model overall, let's look at the runner-up for this list.
Number 2. Xiaomi Mi 9 Lite. Xiaomi is very actively replenishing the Mi 9 series, which at the moment already has as many as 8 smartphones, taking into account all the variants like the Pro versions. Despite such an impressive number of devices within one series, we tested only the most compact one, the Xiaomi Mi 9 SE. But today, let's look at the new and inexpensive Xiaomi Mi 9 Lite, which was introduced recently. The design of Xiaomi Mi 9 Lite is absolutely classic for this year. On the front, there are rather thin bezels and a drop-shaped notch with a front camera at the top. At the back is a vertical unit with cameras. The main camera module got the same treatment. The material is aluminium, not plastic. The back is made of glass, but which one it's hard to say. But in front, we get Corning Gorilla Glass 5. The screen size in the smartphone is 6.39 inches. The matrix is Super AMOLED with a resolution of Full HD, 2340 by 1080 pixels. The aspect ratio is 19.5:9 and the pixel density is at 403 ppi. Extensive settings are available: reading mode, color rendering settings with 3 profiles, auto tuning, increased contrast and standard. In the first, you can change the color tone of the image. It's the most optimal for me. Inside Xiaomi Mi 9 Lite, we get Qualcomm Snapdragon 710 chipset. In the main camera block of the Xiaomi Mi 9 Lite, we have 3 modules. The main 48-megapixel wide-angle module with f1.8 aperture. The size of the sensor is half an inch. The pixel size is 0.8 micrometers, and the focus phase PDAF. The second module is super wide angle, 8 megapixels with an aperture of f2.2, and the third is the standard 2 megapixel depth sensor. It really is one of the best budget phones in the market, without a doubt.
Finally, the next model is the best overall. From us, it gets a perfect score in all categories.
Number 1. Google Pixel 4a. As our top pick, we have an amazing phone from Google. It's the Google Pixel 4a. Most of the Pixel 4a's strengths really made me appreciate Google's cheap phone. The battery life, the size, the headphone jack are all fantastic. But one thing ended up getting in the way of me keeping the Pixel 4a. The Google Pixel 4a is the perfect size if you like small phones. The 5.81-inch display might seem big on a spec sheet, but the small bezels and a punch-hole camera help make this a truly one-handed phone. I never once wished I had a larger phone while scrolling through social media or watching YouTube videos. For as refreshing as the Pixel 4a is to use coming from a big premium phone, I don't like everything about its design. It's fine on the front, but the back of the phone is quite boring. There aren't any visual flares, and it doesn't help that the 4a is only offered in one colour. Also, it's quite light at just 143 grams. It felt like I was holding a toy the entire time I used the phone. Speaking of the display, it's good. Google went with a 5.81-inch AMOLED panel that really didn't make me miss the Quad HD resolution of other flagship phones. The Google Pixel 4a's display gets dim enough for nighttime use, and it's contrasty without appearing unnatural. I do wish it was able to get a little brighter though. The stereo speakers get loud enough to walk around the house playing music or podcasts. The Google Pixel 4a comes with a 3140 mAh non-removable battery, which is larger than the power pack in its predecessor. The Pixel 4a comes with enough power to ensure you can do everything you want on the phone. You get a Snapdragon 730 chipset, 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, of which around 108GB is actually available to you. These specs are more than acceptable at the Pixel 4a's price, but an issue arises if you start to look around, because in terms of the spec sheet, the Google Pixel 4a is outgunned by rivals in a number of ways. There aren't too many smartphones around these days which you can comfortably use one-handed, but the Google Pixel 4a is one of them. Buying guide. Firstly, RAM. RAM is one of the most important aspects of budget phones. Some folks will look at processor, and that's fine, but in my experience the RAM will make or break a phone. Fortunately, we live in a world where even the low-end phones are coming out with 2GB of RAM. By today's standards, that's the very bare minimum a phone has to have to be usable. I've used phones with less, and it's not pretty. RAM is more important than processor. Secondly, display. If you're living in a world of budget phones, you're living in a 1080p world. 1080p is so accessible in today's phones that accepting anything less than that isn't generally going to be required. Some low-end models like the Moto E do come with 720p panels, so this is worth watching out for. Depending on how high quality you enjoy your videos, 1080p is probably the minimum standard you should be watching for. And lastly, build quality. Putting together a budget-friendly phone is generally straightforward. Use as much plastic as you can. Plastic is hella cheap and cheap feeling, but it's also pretty good material to use for a phone. It's somewhat durable and can generally survive a fall or three. If you're planning to throw your phone in a case, then this probably isn't a big issue for you. Occasionally, a mid-range phone OEM will throw in some aluminium rails, which is nice. Generally, you won't find anything better than Gorilla Glass 3 covering the screen, so anything you can find over that is an upgrade. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you found it helpful, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this in the future. If you have any questions related to these products, you can leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.